All right, so we left off with chapters 18 and 19, so I'm going to be reading chapter 20 called Nowhere. This is after he became friends with Hector Benz, his sort of strange best friendship. So, and then it said at the very end of that chapter, and then it was over. So when is it over? Zink Off doesn't know for weeks. He is only dimly aware of things, dimly aware that as time goes by, he seems to be seeing less and less of Benz. He rides to Benz's house and Benz isn't there. He phones. Benz says he has homework to do. He asks Benz this, he asks him that. Benz always seems to say, I guess not. Even Benz's voice over the phone seems to be looking into the beyond. And then one spring day, on the way to school, Zink Off sees a cluster of licorice spit marks on a sidewalk, and it makes him feel a little sad and a little remembery. And just like that, he knows it's over, and something new begins. On that same spring day, something happens to Zink Off. An A happens to him. A's almost never happen to Zink Off, absolutely never on major tests. But this was a major test in geography, his favorite subject, and somehow he has aced it. In fact, his A is the only A in class, a fact that Mrs. Shankfelder announces while holding up his test paper for all the world to see. Zink Off gets an ovation, his first ever. Several kids stand, Barry Haynes even whistles, though probably more to show off his whistle than to honor Zink Off. Congratulations continue to pour in all day. Pats on the back, playful punches in the arm, hair mussings. He wonders if it happened because he rubbed his lucky pink bubblegum stone before taking the test. On the playground, people want to see it. They snatch it from his hand and they rub it on their faces and their chest and under their arms like a washcloth, rubbing on that A juice and sighing, ah. And everyone laughs, and Zink Off laughs too. Like gaudy birds, his name flies in new forms across the schoolyard. The Zink, the Z-Man, the genius, the Zinkster. It never occurs to Zink Off that all the fuss is more than a simple A can account for. It never occurs to him that the loudest and the showiest of the congratulators are really not congratulating him at all, but mocking him for blundering into the only A he will ever likely get. Zink Off does not see this. All he sees is that he seems to have acquired the power to make people happy. The very sight of him brings smiles and twinkling eyes to his schoolmates. Spotting him, boys jerk to a halt. They plant their legs as if they were straddling a motorcycle. They thrust a finger pistols at him and they go, there he is. Hands sprout like weeds to be high-fived. Yo, Zink! And as he comes to the dinner table one night, he stands for a moment at his chair and he thumps his chest with his fist and declares, I'm the Zink, and sits down. His mother and father look at each other and his sister Polly says, you to what? And then this too is over. And like the best friendship, it's over before he knows it. In fact, it has never been quite what he thought it was in the first place. One day, Zink notices that except for Katie Snelson and a few others, no one even smiles at him anymore. No one is high-fiving him, and no one is yo-zinking him. He thinks about it, and he figures that he knows why. Field day is coming. And no one takes field day more seriously than fifth graders, and that's what Zink Off thinks it is, merely a turning of attention from himself to field day. He has heard his last yo, seen his last smile. Okay, he thinks, no problem. And he puts on his game face. He brings chairs from the kitchen to the backyard and he practices the weave around the chairs race and the 1 foot hop and the hiney hop. He goes out onto the sidewalk and just as he did when he was little, and he races cars to the end of the block. And it surprises him that the cars seem so much faster these days. He does jumping jacks, and meanwhile in school, Gary Hobbin is rising to prominence as he does every year around field day. Field day is still 2 weeks away when Hobbin goes to Mrs. Shankfelder and asks her to pick the 4 teams now. We want to have time to practice together, he says. So Mrs. Shankfelder writes on top of the green board, red, yellow, purple, green. Then she writes each student's name on a slip of paper and mixes them into a box. She calls Ronnie Jo Thomas up front and tells her to turn her head away and pick a slip from the box. The first name out of the box goes in the red column, the next one in the yellow column, and so on until each student is assigned to go on a team. Gary Hobbin is a yellow. So is Zink Off. Oh no! Blurts Hobbin in the moment that he sees Zink Off's name go up under his. The teacher turns from the board. Pardon me? We can't be on the same team again, says Hobbin. We're supposed to be on different teams each year to make it fair. Mrs. Shankfelder frowns. Don't be silly. There is no such rule. Hobbin snarls under his breath. There is now. 10 minutes later, Zink Off receives a note on his desk. The note says, forget yellow. Join another team. On the playground, at around lunchtime, Hobbin comes to Zink Off. Did you get the note? Yeah, says Zink Off. What's it mean? It means what it says. You're not a yellow. Join another team. But I am a yellow. Mrs. Shankfelder said so. Hobbin is taller than Zink Off, and he leans down until his eyes are locked into Zink Off's, and Zink Off can smell the hot dog in his breath. Listen, says Hobbin. You're not going to make me lose again. There's no way you're going to be on my team. You understand? Forget it. Zink Off is confused. A week ago, Hobbin was high-fiving him and calling him the Zink, and now this? But I practice, says Zink Off. I'm good now. Hobbin laughs. You're a loser. You lose. Go lose with somebody else. You're not a yellow. And he walks off and turns back. And you can't even walk right. And it's in Zink Off's mind to say, but I got an A. But he knows it will make no difference. Each team has a captain. Hobbin, of course, being the captain of the Yellows. In the days that follow, Zink Off approaches each of the other team captains and asks if they could use a new member. Each of them says no. Zink Off does not know what to do. He's tempted to tell Miss Shankfelder of his problem and let her handle it, but he thinks better of it. He's too embarrassed to tell his parents, to admit that no one wants him on their team. He rubs his lucky pink bubblegum stone, hoping to change his luck. And he continues to practice. If anything, he practices even harder and longer. He is not home for dinner on the last day before field day, and his mother has to send Polly out to find him racing cars 2 blocks away. And even as he gasps for breath walking home, listening to Polly harp at him, he knows what he will do. He gets up as usual the next day and heads off to school, but he does not arrive. He veers off and walks the other way. In the distance, he hears the late bell, and he wants to run to it, but he does not. He walks the streets of town. He looks at his feet, trying to see what Hobbin sees. The town is the same and not the same brick house fronts and sidewalks, but no kids. He feels the picture he lives and has been tilted. He has never been so aware of air, the space around him. He feels like he did when he wandered by mistake into the girls' room. He is the only person he knows who has done so more than once. A woman across the street in a flowery bathrobe leans from her front door to pick up a newspaper on the step. A yellow cat emerging from an air shaft studies him for a moment and darts back in. He tries walking the alleys, and that's worse. He's unhappy everywhere. He is nowhere. He wishes to be somewhere. He wishes to be with people, but he cannot go to school and he cannot go home. Ultimately, he walks to the 900 block of Willow. As he heads up the sidewalk, he is comforted to see that the waiting man is there. Even at this strange time of day, he waves at the waiting man and aches for a wave in return. It occurs to him to do a silly little dance to see if the waiting man will still smile, but he chickens out. Claudia, the little girl in the harness, is not outside today. He is tempted to knock on the door. Can Claudia come out and play? How silly would that sound? Him, 11 years old. Oh, mailman! He turns. She's across the street leaning on the walker. He turns to her. He wants to hug her. He's so happy she's there. Hi, he says. Hi, she says. It sounds funny. Hi, coming from such an old person. He has the impression he could teach her to speak, like a talking bird, which she reminds him of a bird, the thin legs sticking out from her bathrobe. School mornings must be the time of bathrobes. Come on in, she says, as if she knows that he needs to be someplace. She doesn't say, what are you doing here? It's a school day. She doesn't say, what's going on or where's your bike? She just says, come on in, as if that happens all the time. And he goes in. All right, so that's where we're going to stop from right now. So he's skipped school so that he doesn't have to do field day in 5th grade. And we'll see what happens after that. All right, thanks, guys.